Why is multitasking a bad idea? That's what I'm gonna try and convince you today. Let's get started. Hey folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Praveen Ramesh, and on this channel I speak, review and summarize non-fiction books, and I also speak about lessons that I'm personally learning by reading these books. I find it immensely useful. I hope you do too. As I said at the start, multitasking is seen as the thing that you need to possess if you're a modern employer. It's seen as one of the most vital skills. In fact, a lot of my friends claim this to be their superpower, where they say, hey, I can multitask, I can do a lot of things at the same time, I can context switch like this and all those things. And to be very honest, guilty as charged, I used to think the same way as well. Until it all changed when I read this book called The One Thing by Gary, where it felt like, okay, hey, how much am I losing by doing multitasking? Right? So I went on to do some research, and that's what I'm gonna be rambling / sharing with you by doing some bit of activity. Right? So before we start the activity, I want you to start a stopwatch along with me. So I'll do this task with you. Let's narrate alphabets from A to G. Okay, so how much time did it took? So for me, it roughly took around 1.5 seconds to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, let's try and say numbers from 1 to 7. Let's go ahead and do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, roughly took 1.2 max seconds, right? Now here comes the interesting part. Let's alternate between the numbers and the alphabets. Let's get started. 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, 6F, and 7G. This took anywhere between 3.5 to 4 seconds for you, depending on how fast or how slow you did that, right? So you're able to see the difference, right? So you were much faster just narrating 1 to 7, much faster doing A to G, but the moment you started alternating between the numbers and the alphabets, things started slowing down. So now that we have established effectively that things do slow down when you alternate between two things, let's get to the scientific explanation, right? So what happens when you really do a lot of context switching, or when you really try to do multiple things at the same time? First thing, you're alternating between multiple tasks. Your brain has to take 3 decisions, right? So let's say in this case, I had to switch between alphabets. So I had to remember the decision to switch, I had to remember the rules of switching, and I had to remember when to switch as well. So after 1, I have to tell myself that I have to tell A. After 2, I have to tell B. So these are 3 things that I need to remember. And this leads to a lot of loss in efficiency. So simply by ensuring that I combine different rules and different tasks, my efficiency of doing things is effectively come down, right? So technically it should have just taken me 1 second plus 1.2 seconds, probably 2.3 seconds to complete this. But I take nearly 1.5 seconds extra to complete this, simply by ensuring that I'm shifting between 2 things. Second thing, researchers estimate that you roughly lose 28% of your time to multitasking, right? Let that sink in. 28% of your time you lose to multitasking. What does that account to? So just to give you some perspective, I hope you're able to see on the screen, you lose roughly 2 hours 24 minutes in a day if you have an 8-hour work day. That accounts to 11.2 hours in a week and 582 hours in a year. And that's roughly, to give you context, 25 days in a year that you lose to multitasking. So in the want of doing a lot of things quickly, or in the want of urge to get multiple things done, you end up losing a lot of time. 25 days roughly, to be very, very honest with you, right? So this was very fascinating for me when I went ahead and did this calculation, because when you're multitasking, as I said at the start, you always have to remember, hey, where was I? What should I be accomplishing next? And you take time to get back into that zone. And the third and the biggest side effect, so the first one is you remembering the rules. Second, which leads to a decrease in efficiency. The second one is you end up wasting a lot of time. And the third thing is poor sense of decision making, right? So let's say if I was your manager or you were my manager, and you come and ask me, Praveen, how long do you think a person is gonna take to tell from A to G? If I'm someone who's constantly multitasking, I'm just gonna think maybe it's gonna take 3.5 to 4 seconds, whereas in reality it takes just probably 1 to 1.2 seconds, right? So if someone is constantly multitasking, they kind of lose the sense of precise decision making, because they have a very poor sense of how long it takes to really get a thing done with some amount of focused job. So you always tend to bloat up your timeline or the amount of effort it takes to get things done as opposed to what it actually takes to get the work done. So just to quickly summarize, if you're someone who's constantly multitasking, just by making your brain realize when you need to shift, how you need to shift, making your brain remember the rules of switching and all those things, you're gonna reduce your brain's efficiency to get things done, in the process of which you end up wasting a lot of time, 25 days in a year to be precise, just by multitasking, depending on the scale of multitasking that you do, and it leads to a distorted decision making where you're not able to accurately predict how much time a task is gonna take or how much time a thing is gonna take. I hope I've made my case for why multitasking is bad for you. If you're someone who's constantly multitasking, I would love to know your perspective on why you think multitasking is good or how you think it is helping you. Probably I would love to have two sides of the debate, because that's what all the fun is about, right? Me learning from you, you learning from me. So do add on the comments on why you think multitasking is working for you, or if you changed your mind after seeing this video, do let me know as well. This is Praveen Ramesh signing off until I see you in the next video.